What's really unique about Bell is if you look at their history in the airborne public safety space, you have to go back more than 70 years. And, Bell not only developed and fielded the world's first police helicopter and the world's first fire helicopter, we're still partnered with those same agencies today.
When we talk about flying Cobras, first of all, how did you get selected to fly Cobras?
Sheer luck, that's, I wish it was anything more than that. But you basically put your dream sheet to the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps puts it into the redonculator and says, okay, hey, that's great. You want to be a Cobra guy? We have 353 slots this week. So congratulations. That is what it is. What I will say, what holds true, regardless, is that every pilot loves their platform. So for those that are kind of listening and they're like, well, I want to be a jet dude, I'm just terrified of getting P3s or whatever. I've never met a pilot that was like, not fully committed in a relationship with their platform. And I say that, man, I look at the P3, the Orion, it's a big maritime ASW aircraft, we call it the four fans of freedom. And it's like, dude, that thing is like an airliner. And they're like, but it's a beautiful airliner. And you're like, okay. So for the Cobra, it was actually pretty straightforward. I had an on-wing, which is kind of a Navy assigned mentor to you in flight school. And I got really lucky with my on-wing. He was a Marine F-18 guy, Captain Brooks. And, I was like, yeah, again, I want to be like this dude. And so when it came time to rack and stack my choices, you get 4 choices in the Marine Corps out of primary. So you can select jets, which kind of puts you down the F-18, the Harrier route. You can select tilt rotor, which is Ospreys. You can select multi-engine, which is C-130s. And then you can select helos, which is Cobras, Hueys, and 53s. And so I went to him and I was like, hey, I want to be a jet dude, but if I wasn't to be a jet dude, what would you recommend? And he was like, trigger pulling. He's like, trigger pulling is the best. He was like, rack and stack trigger pullers. And I was like, okay. So it was like, jets, helos, C-130s, because actually our C-130s launch Hellfire missiles, which is kind of cool. And, cool. Then I put Ospreys at the bottom. So I got rotors. And so, I was out of primary. I was like, man, I got my second choice. Like, well, let's make sure we study harder this time and get my first choice because it pays to be a winner. And so I got really lucky when I selected rotors. There was 1 Cobra slot and I got that slot. And at the time, the Marine Corps was not flying the Z. So the Cobra has 2 variants up until recently. I mean, the Cobra has got a super long lineage from Vietnam forward. But operationally, since I've been in, we had 2 variants, which was the AH-1 Whiskey or the Super Cobra and the AH-1 Zulu. I think the official name is the Viper, but most of us just call it the Z. And it's basically a 4-bladed glass cockpit variant. Got upgraded motors, a little bit more gas, more stations to carry more ordnance, so a better sensor. But anyway, so when I selected the Z, it was only on the West Coast, so that was a terrible misfortune for me. And I got really lucky. I wanted to fly Zs. It was on the West Coast, and that worked for my wife and I, who were dual military at the time. She could get co-located pretty close by. And so that's how it happened. But I don't want to say that I had any more to do with it than just try to get good grades and then, throw the Hail Mary up.
Yeah. So what was your experience like flying the Cobras in hindsight, I guess?
I love the Cobra. In fact, I'm still a reservist. So once a month, they'll let me go put a gray aircraft back on and, pretend to be as good as I once was, I guess, take the Peace words. It's awesome, man. The Cobra is just a blast to fly. It's powerful. It's agile. The 20 millimeter shooting the cannon, like you feel it. It's visceral. It's just trigger pulling is the best. He wasn't wrong. It does not disappoint. So I've had a good time flying the Cobra, and the Marine Corps has been great to me. I've flown the Cobra all over the world. In every, the Marines hymn is "We fought in every climb and place," and I feel like I've flown the Cobra in every climb and place: deserts, tropical jungle, up in the Sierra Nevadas, super high mountains, down, Death Valley, below sea level. I mean, just anywhere you can fly this thing. I feel like I've gotten the opportunity to fly it, and that's been really a highlight of my career for sure.
Can you talk about the armament on the Cobra?
Absolutely, yeah. So the Cobra has a 20 millimeter Gatling gun on it. So that's on the nose. It does kind of the standard party tricks that everybody reads about. So where I look, the gun can look. But that's the primary armament. It has 6 stations that we can, mix and match a lot of different things. We have an air-to-air capability, which is unique to the Cobra. So we're the only helicopter with an integrated air-to-air capability. We carry the AIM-9 Sidewinder missile. And then, the big toys, if you will, are we carry the Hellfire, which is an anti-tank missile, so an air-to-ground. And then we have 2.75-inch rockets, the Hydra 70 series rockets, which, again, it's kind of like ice cream. You can have a lot of different flavors. So we carry, high explosive. We carry illumination rounds, smoke marking rounds, flechette, which are like tiny little darts that shotgun out at somebody. So we carry those. And then, we have other weird things that we can carry as well. Battlefield illumination flares. We can carry aux fuel tanks. So it's got a lot of capability.
Looking back, or I guess currently still because you're a reservist, but what's your experience with power? If you're in, high, hot, and heavy type environments, how are you doing in the Cobra? Spoiled.
I mean, we have the same engine as the Blackhawk, so it's the General Electric T700 401s Cs. So I mean, the engine's a monster. I mean, it's 1,800 horsepower aside. It's where we typically operated the Cobra was, Camp Pendleton at sea level. So your max, your best performance you're ever going to have there. And usually we didn't have a lot of stuff on the side, right? You might carry a rocket pod or 2, 1 rack of Hellfire. So you're really never near max gross. Max gross on a Cobra is just north of 18,000 pounds. So, we were rarely there. And I can think of a handful of times in my career where, I had to consider my power pole. That has somewhat come back to bite me in the civilian world, where I was like, I've got power for days.